The academy floated among the stars, a vast structure of shining metal and crystal towers. Alien students from dozens of planets moved through the halls, each one strong, fast, or clever in ways Elier had never seen. He walked carefully beside his father, his small human frame almost lost among towering alien forms. His father gave him a gentle nod. "Be patient, Elier. They will see your strength even if they do not understand it yet." The first test was simple for the aliens but terrifying for him. They had to leap across a gap that seemed impossible, landing on moving platforms with perfect timing. One by one the other students jumped gracefully, their long limbs carrying them far. Elier tried. He slipped, clawing at the edge of the platform, and fell. The laughter was immediate. High, shrill, and mocking, filling the chamber. "Humans are weak," one shouted. "He can't even jump," another cried. Elier's cheeks burned, but he got up and tried again. He fell again. Next came the intelligence trial. The aliens had eyes that could see in patterns and minds that processed thousands of calculations at once. The test was a puzzle of light and sound. They had to arrange glowing symbols to unlock a door. The aliens solved it quickly, their symbols lighting up perfectly. Elier stared at the glowing shapes, unsure what to do. He pressed one, then another, and the symbols blinked angrily. Again laughter. The instructors whispered to each other, shaking their heads. "A human will never pass," one murmured. Despite the embarrassment, Elier did not cry. He stood straight, wiped his hands on his tunic, and looked around. The other students continued to mock him, their voices echoing off the walls, but he focused. He tried to understand the puzzle differently, thinking not like the aliens but like a human. Slowly a pattern emerged. One symbol after another clicked into place and the door opened. A few of the aliens stopped and stared, surprised. A small smile appeared on Elier's face. He had solved it even if it took longer than the others. The last test of the day was the etiquette trial. The students had to demonstrate respect to the instructors, a ritual that involved precise gestures and words in alien languages. Elier watched carefully. He mimicked the motions but his hands moved too slowly. He mispronounced a word and the instructors frowned. Again laughter broke out. "He cannot even bow correctly," one shouted. His heart sank, but he remembered his father's words. "Be patient. They will see your strength." He tried again. Each movement he made was clumsy, but he tried to show sincerity. The instructors glanced at each other. Some shook their heads, but a few noticed the honesty in his eyes. During a break, Elier sat quietly while the other students rested, their chatter full of jokes at his expense. A small alien boy, younger than the rest, approached him cautiously. "Why do you keep trying? You are terrible at all of it," he said softly. Elier looked at him and smiled. "Because giving up is easier for them," he said. "I want to find my own way. Maybe I will fail, but at least I will try my way." The boy blinked, unsure what to say, and wandered back. Elier's father came to him, placing a large hand on his shoulder. "You have more strength than you know," he whispered. "Strength is not only in speed, size, or skill. Sometimes, it is in patience, in thinking, and in refusing to be afraid of failure. Remember that, Elier. One day they will see it too." Elier nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest that no mockery could touch. The final moments of the day came, and the students were gathered to hear the results. Elier's failures were listed first, his name causing another round of laughter. He bowed his head, ready to accept the shame, but then the instructors paused. They whispered among themselves, pointing at the puzzle he had solved earlier. "Perhaps there is more in a human than we thought," one said quietly. Elier's heart lifted slightly. It was a small recognition, but it was enough to remind him that even failure could hold seeds of respect. As the students left, still laughing and whispering, Elier stayed behind a moment, looking at the stars through the academy's tall windows. He clenched his fists and whispered to himself, "I will show them. I may be small, I may fail, but I will rise." Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of worlds he had yet to explore. Inside him, a quiet determination burned. The laughter of the aliens could not touch that. By the time the sun set over the alien planet, Elier had walked the halls slowly but with purpose. Each failure was a lesson, each laugh a challenge. He did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing: the galaxy would not see the last of him. And perhaps, one day, even the ancient throne of the Academy would recognize his worth. The Academy's main hall was silent except for the hum of alien technology. Today the final challenge would take place and the tension was like a thick fog. Students lined up, their eyes bright with excitement or arrogance. Elier stood at the back, smaller and weaker looking than the towering aliens around him. Whispers traveled across the hall. "The human will fail," one said. "He is unfit for the throne trial," another added. Elior heard it all but kept his head high, reminding himself of his father's words. Strength is not always obvious. Patience and heart can surpass any test. The head instructor, a tall being with translucent skin and eyes like liquid silver, stepped forward. "Today you will face the throne of trials. Only one may awaken it and prove their worth. Approach with caution, for the throne tests more than skill. It tests your spirit." The room seemed to grow colder, and a soft glow began to shine from the throne at the far end of the hall. Elior's heartbeat quickened. The throne was unlike anything he had seen. Strange symbols carved in alien script pulsed with light, and the air seemed alive with power. The first part of the challenge was physical. Students had to navigate a corridor filled with shifting platforms, sliding walls, and moving energy barriers. The aliens leapt and glided effortlessly, their bodies bending in ways humans could not. Elior stepped forward, focusing on one obstacle at a time. He stumbled and nearly fell, but he remembered how he had solved the intelligence puzzle in the first trial by thinking differently. He moved slowly, carefully observing the patterns of the barriers. Step by step he progressed. The aliens snickered behind him, whispering, "See? Even slower than a hatchling." Next came the puzzle section. A wall of floating holographic panels displayed symbols, constantly shifting and changing. The students had to arrange them in the correct sequence to unlock the path to the throne. The aliens' long limbs allowed them to touch many panels at once, solving sequences with ease. Elior studied the symbols, noticing patterns they overlooked. He touched one, then another, and slowly the panels clicked into place. A door opened before him, and some of the aliens stopped, their confidence faltering for a moment. They muttered, "The human, he is different." The final test was the ritual of respect. Students were required to perform gestures of humility and speak words in the ancient language of the academy, showing they understood the history and responsibility of the throne. Elior struggled with pronunciation, and his gestures were not perfect. The laughter of the aliens grew sharp and mocking. "He cannot even speak properly," someone shouted. "How can he hope to awaken the throne?" Elior's heart pounded, but he concentrated on the meaning behind the words. He did not perform the ritual as the aliens did. Instead, he performed it as he felt it, with honesty, respect, and intent. When he reached the throne, the glow intensified. Elior's hands trembled as he reached forward, almost afraid to touch the ancient surface. The other students crowded around, leaning in to mock him. "What is he doing?" one whispered. "He cannot even complete the tests." Elior pressed his palm to the cold metal. Nothing happened. A small cut on his hand bled, and a drop of blood fell onto the throne. Immediately, the symbols flared brighter, and a low hum filled the room. The throne seemed to react to him, responding not to skill or strength but to something deeper, something only he possessed. Gasps spread through the audience. Aliens who had laughed moments ago froze, staring in disbelief. The throne's glow bathed Elior in light, reflecting in his wide eyes. He had not expected this. The power felt warm, alive, and he realized it recognized his determination, patience, and honesty. The instructor with silver eyes stepped forward, voice trembling. It has chosen him. The human boy, he awakens the throne." Whispers spread like wildfire. "Impossible. A human?" some muttered. Others bowed their heads in quiet respect, acknowledging a truth they could not deny. Elior stood there, heart racing but calm. He had failed many tests, been mocked and laughed at, and yet here he was, chosen by the throne itself. He looked around at the faces of the alien students, some shocked, some humbled. His father's words echoed in his mind, "Patience and heart can surpass any test." Elior understood now that this was not about being the strongest or fastest. It was about being true to oneself, about facing the trials with honesty and courage. The throne's light pulsed, and a voice resonated in the hall, not in words but in understanding. It spoke to his mind, not his ears, welcoming him, recognizing him, marking him as someone who could shape the galaxy in ways the aliens could not yet comprehend. Elior felt a quiet power within himself, a strength that had always been there but only now awakened. As the hall emptied, leaving only him and the throne, Elior looked up at the vast sky through the high windows of the academy. Stars twinkled, distant worlds full of possibilities. He had faced humiliation, struggled, and almost given up, yet here he stood, chosen. The laughter and ridicule of the past faded like shadows. What mattered now was the path ahead, the journey of a human who had failed many times but had finally proven that failure was not the end. Elior smiled faintly, placing his hands lightly on the throne's surface. The glow embraced him, a promise of what could come. One day he would show the galaxy what a human could achieve, even in a universe that thought humans were weak. Today was only the beginning. The final challenge had been more than a test of skill, it had been a test of spirit. And Elier had passed in the way only a human could. Elier stood before the ancient throne, his small hands resting lightly on its cold, polished surface. The glow from the carved symbols pulsed slowly, as if the throne itself were breathing. Around him, the alien students murmured in shock, their earlier laughter replaced by whispers of disbelief. They had mocked him for failing every test, for being too weak, too small, too human, but now something they did not understand was happening. The throne had remained silent for centuries, awakening only for those it deemed worthy. The instructors, their silver eyes wide, observed cautiously, unsure if the moment was real or some trick of light. Elier's blood had fallen onto the throne during the final ritual, a single drop from a small cut on his hand, but that was enough. The throne's energy seemed to recognize something unique in him, a spark of courage, patience, and resilience that no alien student had ever displayed. A low hum filled the hall, vibrating through the floor and walls. Elier felt it in his chest as if the throne were speaking directly to his heart. It was not words, not in any language he knew, but an understanding that made him shiver. This was not a test of strength or skill, this was a test of spirit. And in that moment, the throne acknowledged him. The symbols carved into the throne's surface glowed brighter, swirling in patterns that seemed alive. Light extended into the room, bathing everything in a warm, golden hue. Some of the aliens shielded their eyes, overwhelmed by the radiance. Elier, however, could see clearly. The throne's energy moved around him like liquid light, wrapping him in a sense of power and purpose. He realized that this was not something he could control yet, it was something the throne had chosen to share with him. The students who had mocked him before stepped back, fear and awe on their faces. How can this be?" one whispered. "A human, he is the chosen?" Another bowed slightly, unable to hide their respect. For centuries, humans had been considered weak in comparison to the many alien species, and yet here was Elier, small and seemingly fragile, awakening a power that no alien had touched. It was a quiet lesson in humility. Elier took a deep breath. The hum of the throne continued, now a gentle vibration rather than a roar, as if it were inviting him to understand its purpose. He closed his eyes and let his mind focus, thinking not of failure or ridicule, but of the lessons he had learned: patience, observation, persistence, and honesty. The throne responded to those qualities, not to size, speed, or alien skill. Slowly, the glow formed a shape above him, a symbol that seemed familiar, yet ancient, as if it had been waiting for someone like him for ages. The instructors approached cautiously. One of them, the oldest and wisest, stepped forward, her translucent fingers trembling. "It recognizes him," she said softly. "This is the prophecy, the one who will awaken the throne is not of our strongest races but human." Gasps spread among the students. Many had never believed in humans beyond their minor contributions to galactic society. Now, the prophecy they had dismissed as myth was unfolding before their eyes. Elier opened his eyes and saw the energy swirling faster, responding to his thoughts and intentions. He had never felt power like this before, and yet it did not frighten him. It felt natural, like the culmination of all the small choices and efforts he had made. Trying again when he failed, standing up when others laughed, solving puzzles in his own way, and performing rituals with honesty. The throne rewarded heart, courage, and persistence. The alien students, once confident and mocking, now watched in silence. Some bowed instinctively, acknowledging the human's achievement. Elier felt no pride or arrogance. Instead, he felt responsibility. The throne had awakened because of him, and with its power came purpose. He would need to learn, to understand, to use it wisely. But for now he simply stood, letting the golden light surround him, letting the energy flow through him, a quiet but undeniable proof of human potential. The head instructor stepped forward again, her voice steady but full of awe. "Let it be known," she said, "that a human has awakened the throne. Let all who doubt it see that strength is not measured only in size, skill, or appearance but in spirit. Let this day mark the beginning of a new understanding of humans in the galaxy." Elier's heart lifted at her words. For the first time he felt the galaxy seeing him for what he truly was, not what they had assumed. As the light slowly faded, the symbols on the throne continued to glow faintly, a promise that its power was now connected to him. Elier removed his hand and looked around at the other students. Some still stared in disbelief, some whispered respectfully, and some bowed completely, acknowledging the human boy who had failed every test yet awakened the greatest power in the academy. Elior's father appeared at the doorway, eyes shining with pride. He came forward and placed a hand on Elior's shoulder. "I told you," he said softly. "They could not see your strength, but the throne could. Remember this moment. Remember who you are. This is only the beginning." Elior nodded. He understood now that failure was never final, and that the qualities that others mocked could be the very ones that opened doors no one else could. The hall was quiet now, the students leaving in awe, the instructors whispering, and Elior standing before the ancient throne, a human chosen where none expected it. He felt a warmth inside him, a quiet determination. The laughter and mockery of before had no place here. Only the future mattered. The future of humans, the academy, and the galaxy itself, and Elior knew he was ready to face it all. The hall was quiet, still glowing faintly with the energy of the ancient throne. Elior stood before it, his small human form illuminated by the soft golden light. Around him alien students and instructors watched in awe. The boy who had failed every test, who had been mocked and laughed at, had awakened the throne. The reality of it began to sink in, and with it came a ripple of recognition that spread through the crowd. The first to react were the instructors. They whispered urgently among themselves, their silver eyes wide. "It cannot be," one murmured. "A human, he has fulfilled the prophecy." Another nodded slowly, her translucent fingers resting on her lips in shock. For centuries, the prophecy had spoken of one who would awaken the throne, but it had always been assumed that the chosen would come from the strongest alien race. Never a human. Now the impossible had happened. The students' reactions were louder. Many who had laughed at Elior were frozen, unable to speak. Others bowed instinctively, humbled by what they were witnessing. Some whispered apologies to each other, realizing how wrong they had been. "How could we doubt a human?" one said quietly. "He failed every test, and yet..." Another simply shook their head, staring at Elior with a mix of fear and respect. Elior remained calm, though his heart raced. He had expected surprise, perhaps some disbelief, but not this total shift. The throne's energy pulsed around him, responding to the steadiness of his mind and the courage in his heart. It was as if the throne itself were confirming that he had not only awakened it but had also earned its recognition. He realized that this was not about being the fastest, the strongest, or the most talented in alien ways. It was about being true to himself, about persistence, patience, and integrity. One of the instructors stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. "Let it be known," she declared, "that the ancient throne recognizes the human Elior as the worthy heir. His heart, courage, and determination have awakened a power unseen for centuries. Let all who doubted understand the strength of humans." Her words spread through the hall like a wave, reaching even the students who had been silent. The mood shifted. Respect replaced mockery and awe replaced arrogance. Elior looked at the other students. Some were still in disbelief, others bowed, and a few who had once mocked him the loudest, now avoided his eyes. They could not deny what they had seen. The boy who had failed every test was now the one chosen by the throne. The irony was not lost on anyone, but it carried no bitterness for Elior. Instead, he felt a quiet satisfaction, a validation not for pride but for truth. He had been underestimated, laughed at, and dismissed, and yet, here he was, standing in the glow of destiny. The throne's light grew slightly, as if acknowledging the understanding passing through the hall. Elior felt a connection with it, a silent communication that went beyond words. He sensed a purpose, a duty, and a responsibility. The throne had chosen him not just to awaken its power, but to guide it, to carry it forward. He would need to learn, to grow, and to face challenges greater than any trial he had endured so far. Yet he was ready because he had faced doubt and mockery before and had not faltered. The alien students began to approach him carefully. Some bowed, some offered gestures of respect, and some simply nodded silently. It was clear they were trying to understand, to reconcile their previous assumptions with the new reality. One of the younger students, the same who had whispered to him during the mock trial, stepped forward and said softly, I never thought a human could do this. You have shown us something we could not see." Elior smiled gently. "It is not about being the strongest," he replied. "It is about trying even when others think you will fail. Sometimes the smallest effort, done with honesty, is stronger than the greatest skill." The instructors gathered around the throne, murmuring and discussing the events, analyzing the light and energy that had been awakened. "It has never responded this way before," one said. "Only one who is pure of heart, patient, and persistent can awaken it." Another nodded. The humans may have been underestimated for too long. Perhaps this is only the beginning of a new understanding. Elier listened quietly, knowing that the significance of this moment went far beyond the Academy. It was a lesson to the galaxy itself, that humans, often overlooked, could rise to challenges in ways others could not imagine. As the hall emptied slowly, leaving Elier and the throne alone for a moment, he placed his hands on its surface once more. The light responded, gentle and warm. He could feel the power, yes, but also a sense of expectation. He was chosen, but the journey was just beginning. The galaxy would watch, and humans would no longer be seen as weak or insignificant. Elier understood now that failure had been part of the path, and every mockery and doubt had only strengthened him for this moment. When his father entered quietly, Elier looked up and smiled. "You have done it," his father said, eyes shining. "You have shown them the truth about humans. This is just the beginning." Elier nodded, feeling a sense of calm determination. The throne's light pulsed around him, echoing the same rhythm of resolve in his heart. The recognition was complete. Humans had been underestimated, laughed at, and dismissed, but now they had a champion. And that champion was him. The stars outside the Academy windows sparkled, countless worlds waiting, full of challenges and possibilities. Elier knew that he would face them all, armed with patience, courage, and the knowledge that true strength comes not from size or skill alone, but from the heart. The aliens had seen it now, and so had the throne. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. And Elier was ready to show them why. The hall was quiet, the energy of the ancient throne still pulsing softly around Elier. Outside, the sky of the alien world shimmered with stars, distant planets reflecting light like scattered jewels. The Academy had never seen anything like this. A human, a boy who had failed every test chosen by the throne itself. Word of the awakening spread quickly, first through whispers among the students, then through messages to the outer worlds. The galaxy had begun to notice. Elier stepped carefully from the hall, his father by his side. "This is only the beginning," his father said gently. "What you have done here will change how they see humans. Not just in this academy but across the stars." Elier nodded. He felt the weight of the throne's recognition, a quiet responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was not just a boy who had passed a test, he was a symbol, a bridge between humans and the many alien civilizations that had doubted them for centuries. In the days that followed, students approached him with respect rather than mockery. Some were curious, asking how he had succeeded where they had failed. Others bowed, acknowledging his courage and patience. Even the instructors who had once doubted him, now sought his perspective. They asked him questions about human ways, about how he had approached the challenges differently, and Elier shared simply, "We do not give up when failure comes. We learn, we try again, and we trust in what we can do, even when others cannot see it." The other alien students began to change too. The ones who had once teased him now worked beside him, eager to understand his methods. They realized that their confidence had blinded them to the strengths humans possessed: creativity, patience, and an ability to think differently. The Academy, which had always celebrated physical and mental prowess alone, began to value determination, honesty, and spirit. Elier had unwittingly started a revolution of thought. News of the event reached distant planets. Humans were no longer considered minor players in the Galactic Council of Races. Leaders sent messages of respect, acknowledging that a human had awakened the throne of trials, a power that had been dormant for centuries. Some were curious, others cautious, and a few were worried about what this might mean for the balance of power. Yet all recognized that the galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. Elier continued to learn under the guidance of the instructors. The throne itself became a teacher, its energy responding to his thoughts, guiding him in ways he could not fully understand yet. He studied history, strategy, and the ancient knowledge of countless civilizations. Every lesson he absorbed made him stronger, not just in skill but in wisdom. The aliens who had once mocked him began to see him as a leader, not because of his strength, but because of his clarity of thought and fairness. The Academy changed alongside him. Rules were adjusted to recognize more than just physical ability and quick intellect. Students were encouraged to pursue their own strengths, and diversity of thought became celebrated. Humans were invited to share their methods, their approaches to problem-solving and persistence. Elier's actions had reshaped not only the perception of humans, but also the philosophy of the Academy itself. When the throne pulsed one evening, bathing the hall in golden light, Elier stood before it and felt a deep connection. It was no longer merely a test or a trial. It was a responsibility, a promise to protect, guide, and inspire. He knew that the galaxy would watch him, that challenges would come from all corners of space, but he also knew he had been chosen because he had something unique, something that no alien test could measure, something that lay in patience, courage, and heart. The students watched as he trained, as he learned to interact with the throne, and as he began to make decisions that affected the academy and beyond. Aliens who had once mocked him became allies, respecting his insight and perspective. Humans were no longer viewed as weak, they were now seen as capable, unpredictable, and valuable. Elier had changed their minds not with force or aggression, but with persistence, honesty, and strength of spirit. Months passed, and the Academy celebrated the first human to awaken the throne. Elier's name became known across planets. Messages of congratulations arrived, but more importantly, messages of interest came. Aliens seeking to learn from humans, students asking to train with him, instructors inviting him to teach. The galaxy was shifting slowly but surely, and at the center of this change was a human boy who had once been laughed at. Elier understood that awakening the throne was not the end, it was a beginning. He would guide the academy, help humans and aliens work together, and show that the qualities others overlooked could become the greatest strengths. The stars outside the academy windows seemed to shine brighter as if reflecting the possibilities now open to him and to humans everywhere. Standing before the throne one final time that day, Elier placed his hand on its surface. The golden light pulsed in recognition, quiet but steady. He whispered softly, "I will not fail. I will show the galaxy who we are." The throne responded with a warmth that felt like approval. Outside, the universe stretched endlessly, full of worlds, challenges, and opportunity. For the first time, humans were no longer underestimated. Elier turned to his father, who smiled proudly. "You have begun a new era," he said. Elier nodded, feeling the truth of it deep in his heart. He had failed, been mocked and doubted, but he had risen. The galaxy had seen the strength of humans, not in muscle or size, but in heart, courage, and persistence. And this was only the beginning of the new era he would help shape. The stars twinkled far beyond the academy, and Elier stepped forward with steady determination, ready to meet the future, ready to show the galaxy what humans could truly do. The new era had begun.